You're not Will. Who
I'm
are
not.
you? What are you doing here? Did you
Hello.
steal Will?
We can
Oh my
pretend that I'm
gosh.
Will today.
Maybe Will might join us. We'll see. Will's fashionably late as usual. Welcome everyone to Survivor StockWatch, episode 6 of the most professional season yet of Survivor StockWatch. I am Jack. With me is Todd
Hi.
from Survivor China. Pretty interesting to see you, Todd. How are you doing today?
Good. I'm really good. A little sleepy this morning, but I'm waking up and I'm happy to be here. Excited to talk about Survivor, which we all love, obviously, if we're here on the podcast. So,
Absolutely. No, I mean it's a pleasure to have you. You are our second guest ever. I think our last was Troyzan back way back. I think it was episode 4 of last season.
really,
And so yeah,
wow.
yeah, and he was a first guest, awesome guest. Lots of thunderstorms in his area that kind of secluded his network availability a little bit, but Todd, it's great to have you. We're going to go ahead and get into the slides here because, as custom with Survivor StockWatch, we like to have a slide whenever we have a guest dedicated to that guest. So, Todd, we got you. We got some picks from China. Your one standout season on the show. I guess the first question, the best question to ask is, how you doing? How have you been? What's life like?
Life is good. I mean, wow. So it has been 17 years since I played Survivor, which is a long time, but it feels like it was a different lifetime ago, but it also at the same time feels like it was yesterday. It's so weird to think because like when I sit down and I talk about Survivor China, it all comes back really quick. But then when I'm not really thinking about Survivor, or even when I'm watching like it on TV, it feels like it was a fever dream. So it's really kind of bizarre. But life is good now. I mean, I am married. I have my own little business where I make custom Funko Pops, and I'm just living my best life.
That's awesome. Yeah, I gotta ask about your Funko Pops. You've been going like we have an ad for you. Obviously, we have an ad for you that we play for some of our shows. How's that going? You're making. I think you're going crazy on these Funko Pops.
I mean, I've been doing it for about 5 years now, which is crazy because it started as a hobby and it turned into a business. And I absolutely love doing it because I get to make, toys. I get to make people. I get to make people's favorite contestants. I get to make I'll make anything. So it's honestly, it's a ton of fun because I get to be creative every single day and just make someone a gift or something that they can't find in a store. So it's all customized. It's all done by hand, and it's really fun. It's good for my brain too to keep busy.
Yeah, no, I mean, it seems like you got a lot of passion about it. It seems like you're like you say, you're in a way fulfilling people's dreams. Maybe being the dream maker that you are. Yeah, so it's great to have you on the show. I mean, in terms of your edit, right? Like we do Educ, we get down into the nitty gritty of how you did on the show, how you were reflected positively and negatively. What like one of my favorite villains in terms of how you were presented in Survivor history, just a little snarky out there, very very conniving, but a really, really, really smart guy and a really, really social guy as well. What do you like? When you're doing something like this, or you're thinking about back to Survivor China, what do you think of? What's like the fondest memory? What's like in your head, like playing on repeat?
Okay, so I feel like I've been a diehard Survivor fan since day one. So I'm a super fan. And so for me, I wanted to play the game. I wanted to play Survivor. And so I didn't believe it was happening until I had a microphone on and cameras were rolling. That's when I was like, okay, they can't get rid of me now. Like I can't get cut. Like it's happening. And so as soon as cameras were rolling, we're all sitting on the dump truck doing like driving towards this big temple. And then we had to hike up this like 450 stairs to get to the temple. And we got to the top and Jeff Probst is there. And he says, "Welcome to Survivor China." Nothing will ever match that. So like that was a huge feeling. And then I remember getting my buff and I couldn't stop staring at it. I couldn't stop staring at our logo. And I was like, this is my logo. This is my logo, not anybody else. Like as a fan, that was super surreal. And then I'll never forget one thing that does come to my mind often is on day 17, I was miserable. I was like, this is the worst thing I've ever done in my life. I was literally laying down in the mud, just like flat on the ground in the mud, staring at it. And I said to myself, you can sit here for 10 minutes and have your pity party, but then you're going to suck it up and you're going to go play the game that you love, no matter how miserable you are. And that's exactly what I did. So I allowed myself that 10 minutes of like, oh, poor me, I'm so hungry and I've got bug bites. And then I got up and I played the game. So yeah, that was a big moment for me.
That's a pretty stacked top 3 moment list. Like that sounds, you're like, yeah, I mean, like, I was fortunate enough to talk to Coach about a week and a half ago. By the way, go check out our Patreon. I'll do a little closing slide on it as well. But I was fortunate enough to talk to Coach about a week and a half ago. He talked about his time on Exile, and he talked about his time generally in the game and how cathartic it was. Like, yeah, I mean, like you're having these, I wouldn't even say crises. I'd say these existential moments of like, wow, I am here. This is the toughest thing I'm going through in my life. Like you being laying down, you lay down like you were like this in the mud.
Yes,
basically.
and I was in just my underwear, and so I was laying there in the mud, just like flat on my back, just in the middle of camp. And so like I was just laying there and I was like, why am I here? What is this? Like, this is the worst feeling, because I am not a camper. I'm not an outdoor dog. Like I'm an indoor dog, but I love Survivor. And so, but I never once was like, I'm going to quit. Never. I just was questioning, like, what was I thinking? And so I finally was like, you know what, Todd, you have the game in your hands and this, you're aware of it. And so if you sit here and complain and whine, that's going to take over, because I know that my brain can allow the negativity to take over if I let it. And so I let myself do it for just that 10 minutes. And I got up and Courtney had a come to situation on day 21. And that's when she was like, you guys won't get rid of me. So like, I guess let's just really go for it. So yeah.
No, I mean, that's awesome to hear. I mean, day 17 as well. I'm spitballing here maybe, but I want to say it's around like episode 5 or 6. You made some moves after that, Todd. You got rid of John Robert, you got rid of James, you got rid of Eric, you got rid of PG, you got rid of Denise. Like you were catapulting yourself through the end of the game, and then that final tribal council is still regarded as probably the best performance all time. In terms of trying to, yeah, no, I'm serious. So, and all the people that I talked to, all the communities I've talked to, they always say that your final tribal council is probably the best anyone's ever done.
Well, thank you.
Because the way you were I think it was the way you were able to, in a sense, bullwhip John Robert and really explain your game over 2 pretty competent players. I mean, Amanda, she got runner-up the next season, played Heroes vs. Villains. Courtney also played Heroes vs. Villains. You cooked. Kyler agrees. Absolutely one of the best.
Do you remember like Survivor Sucks?
Yeah, way back in the day.
Yeah, so I was a member of Survivor Sucks before the show. I was. That's just it. So like I was playing Survivor, but not just for me, but for the Sucksters. I remember just being like,
I'm playing for the Sucksters.
These people proud, like they have to be proud because I'm one of them, and they have no idea. So I wanted to make fellow superfans proud because we kept seeing superfans get cast and get booted right away.
Yeah.
And that was stupid. So, yes.
Yeah, no, especially at that time. I mean, you're talking. You said, I'm pretty sure you said 17 years ago was
Yeah.
Survivor China. Yeah, back in that day, Survivor super fans weren't weren't really focused a lot. They were cut out pretty quickly. You dominated. You showed out. You made the super fan name a household one in a sense.
My goal.
My last
All I wanted.
exactly. My last question before we start getting into this season of Survivor, 17 years to now.
Yeah.
If you were on the island, a la Rob's and Sandra from Island of the Idols,
Okay.
right now, and you could give advice generally to everyone from what you learned from your time on China, personal, gameplay, anything, what would you say?
My biggest advice to anybody is, yes, you can be good at challenges. Yes, you could be good at puzzles. But the most important part is the social aspect, because you are stuck out there with these people and you're bored out of your mind. You're miserable. You go through all sorts of emotions. But if you connect with people, but you have to genuinely connect, don't just talk about the weather or fish or whatever. Get to know everybody. And that's what I did, is I got to know every single person and ask them genuine questions about their lives throughout the game, so that I knew these people by the end, because in doing so, I genuinely was able to care about them. And that's why at my final tribal council speech, when I said, I came here to play a game. Yes, I made a connection with you and I love you and I respect you, but I came here to win $1 million. And that was my one task. So I love you, but I had to do what I had to do. And it came across as true. And no matter what I said afterwards, like no matter how much I hurt someone's feelings, it didn't matter, because they all heard me say I had one goal in mind, and none of my relationships with you were fake, because they weren't, because I built them. I just had to get to the end. So social is very, very important.
Awesome. Very succinct. I like it. And good advice. Objectively good advice. I think people take, like you see, we see some people this season having some conversations that are a little not social. So
some people like they focus. So here's, like if we look at Hunter, phenomenal player, but he was more of a quiet player and he wasn't as social. And if he would have been more social with these people, he may have been able to stick around a little bit longer, just
absolutely,
by the pure fact that he had these bonds and relationships.
No, yeah, I think you're exactly right. And I mean, who better to diagnose that than you? I mean, a truly social win. All right, here we go. We got the rule book, and with the rule book adds Will.
I'm so sorry. Shame. I do not know what happened. I set my alarm for 11. I woke up. I checked my watch. It was 12:15, and I got 2 texts from Randy and Jack asking where I'm at. I'm so sorry, Mr. Todd Herzog.
Hello, Will. Good morning.
It's not really morning for me. It is noon.
It is noon.
You don't have to justify it by calling it morning. Of course, the 1 week where we have Mr. Todd Herzog. Truly tragic.
You made it. You're here. And we're just kicking off. So that's what's important.
We're just getting started, Will. All right, here we go. The Survivor StockWatch rulebook. Todd, we will explain this to you since you are new to Survivor StockWatch. And now you can also defend Will's rankings with Will. So a little bit of a 2-on-1. So I got to step up my game. All right, number 1, for individual player slides, we are placing them based on the winner ranking, basically how likely they are to win, how much we think they're going to win. The lowest player, lowest ranking, yada yada. Whenever someone has a slash, it is permanent, meaning they can no longer have a shot to win. After they have a slash, or if multiple people have slash, their ranking is based on how high we think they're going to place. So let's say we had Kenzie and Hunter from last season,
Okay.
Survivor 46, and we slashed both of them. We would put Kenzie at 1 and Hunter at 2 because we think Kenzie would go farther than Hunter. Pretty self-explanatory. And number 3, we'll also talk about placement ranking throughout the show, but that doesn't really factor into our winner ranking. So if they're still without a slash, they still have a winner ranking. We see where they might be placed. There's definitely one that I want to talk about today. But, that doesn't really factor into what we do. And so we'll get started with the person who was eliminated from the episode who, dear God, Todd's got notes. This is perfect.
You don't got notes?
No, I don't do this show with notes. I go off the cuff. One of the greatest downfall episodes of a Survivor contestant, in my opinion, in history. Right? You're talking about Chris Noble, Drew Christie levels of downfall in this episode. I mean, we don't see people bashed on by the edit as much as this in the new era, and so this. was a beautiful episode to see.
Yes.
I mean, truly, Jay, Rome has fallen, right?
Yes.
We never had Rome as a true contender to win this game. There was a little bit of a bright spot with episode 3. We're thinking, hey, he actually survived the tribal council. Maybe he's got a little bit of legs in the game. And then we figured out next episode when he followed Saul around the entire jungle, we were like, yeah, this guy's probably not going to make it that far, not going to do that well. And so we have him basically right where we ranked him. And so I got to ask, do you guys have any thoughts on Rome, just overall? How do you think he could have done?
I think Rome was phenomenal television. I'll say that much. He was so easy to hate. And that's such a rare thing in the new era. That it's like having him on our TV screens was awesome, I think, because when you're watching something, it's great to root against someone.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think,
but I don't think
to have
a shot of winning.
I'm so sorry.
No, absolutely, no, yeah. Todd agrees. Didn't have a shot of winning.
0. 100%. 0 shot.
Yeah.
The John Robert. Of Survivor of 47. Sorry. I feel like it's rare though to have a villain from the start in Survivor New Era. And that is something that Rome brought us. Because like we think of like Q when we think of like New Era villains. You can even call Emily Flippin out. You can call Josh from 44 out as a villain. But we don't really get like a classic chaotic villain. And I think Rome was kind of that Abby Maria type where he forced a lot of players to really play around him. I'm thinking like Cambodia Abby Maria, where Rome really determined every single player on Lavo. They were playing either with or around or against Rome. Yes. And I think he set out not necessarily to win, but just to have fun and cause as much waves as humanly possible. And I really, really loved this last episode. I thought it was a perfect send-off for a player like Rome. Somehow it's still bittersweet. I think they still humanized Rome too at the very end, which is still a new era hallmark, which is wild.
I think it's great. I think it's to be able to bash someone so vehemently throughout the entire episode, and then give him a podium in Tribal Council, which obviously hasn't been done before in Survivor. So
right.
There's that. Right, props to him.
Yeah.
But and then be so gracious in his exit. I think a lot of people are like, man, if I got voted off, I would be throwing my torch. I would be trying to hit and kick people on the way out the door. I think it was perfect for Rome. The game he had played and the chaos he brought to have a nice, gracious, great game. I had a great time with y'all. Y'all are awesome. Thank you. So I really appreciated it from him. And Survivor 50s in a year or so, a couple seasons here, right? I mean, they obviously like Rome. Production really likes Rome. If he were to come back, yeah. Do you think if Rome were to come back, right? Do you think he's going to be like, I have been blessed with a second chance? Because it does not come often anymore, not at all. I've been blessed with the second chance. Let me actually try and play the game. Let me learn from my mistakes. Do you think that's going to happen, or do you think that's going to be, same old Rome from this season?
Oh, that's hard. Because I don't know. It all depends on who he's playing with. I think for sure. I think he's a shoo-in for 50. Like, yeah, this cast is great. In my opinion, I love this cast, but he's the first real villain that we've had in a long time.
Yep.
And so I feel like he's a shoo-in. And so I feel like, yes, he can try to play differently, but you put him in there with Q, it's probably going to be worse.
I mean, Jay says Romer Q. I mean, Q already got the call, and I think he's already on it, and I'm sure Rome got a call. So that'd be hellish. Kyler with saying he's been given merge boots since episode 2. Props to Kyler, man. Maybe we get you on the podcast and see your chops. All right, here we go. We're getting into the rankings now. We start with Tiana, who is Slash. Not the real Survivor Sherlock. Genevieve is our Survivor Sherlock this season. Tiana quasi kind of figured out that Sue found the idol. The red paint fiasco kind of blew up in the first episode, which, we were like, Will and I were talking, right, Todd? And we were like, this red paint fiasco, it's great, but it's going to go nowhere. Like, it's not going to happen. And then we see this just, of messiness, and people was like, whoa, there's red paint here, and there's a pot here, there's string here. Like, well, somebody found something, and it's not the advantage for the challenge. And it paid off in a great way. And Tiana comments on saying, yeah, I saw Sue with a bit of paint, hanging around with the idol a couple episodes ago. But I think it's actually going to spell bad for Tiana. We've been ranking her pretty low these past couple episodes because of how she's done on the tribe. I think, based on what we know of next episode, I'll break it down. Next episode is going to be the double tribal. That is custom, new era. And it is going to be one side is every single person from Blue and Rachel, which is going to be very interesting because I actually think Tiana will go home in that scenario. I have Tiana going home next because I think the conflict with Gabe from the previous episode and her trying to get out Sue potentially this episode, I think it's going to spell doom for Tiana. And I think that Gabe, Sue, Caroline, and Rachel are going to send Tiana. But who's to say? I'm playing the 2v1 here. What do you guys think?
I agree with you completely, actually. I feel like Tiana 100% has no real hope anymore, especially with the whole idol thing, because it was funny to see the reactions between Caroline and Tiana while they were watching the whole red paint fiasco. Tiana just looked super confused, and it all clicked for Caroline. But then Sue is just, as soon as she hears her name, she goes, she's a bull that sees red. And she's like, no pun intended with that. But she goes crazy. And I think Tiana is screwed because of it.
Yeah. I just think, too, that Sue is such a reactionary player, I feel, where if you are against her, she's after you 100%. And I think Caroline is lucky that Sue had the red paint and that she's working with Sue and that Sue was very receptive to being honest with Caroline and wanting to trust her. I think now she trusts her even more than Gabe. Yes. And so I think Tiana's going to try to throw Sue under the bus, maybe to Rachel in that split tribal council. And I think Rachel is just going to try to expose as many cracks as possible. Or maybe Rachel's on the bottom again and votes wrong again. But whatever the case may be, I kind of had Tiana going this episode over even Rome, just based on the lack of real power she has in the structure, because she's just on the bottom. Not necessarily like no one really, everyone wants her gone, but just no one's really working with her.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean it's going to be a challenge for Tiana to survive this next episode. I think in all of our opinions. So I mean, hopefully she does. Maybe we see her have a little bit of a comeback for an episode or two. Kyle certainly had a decent comeback this episode. Not half bad, right? Wins the immunity challenge, talks about his family a little bit. Nice little thing. And I think he got even lucky this episode. The fact that he got off essentially scot-free because, originally it was Kyle who was being lambasted for what he said to Rome. And Rome was being like, yeah, Kyle said this about you and Caroline to Sue. And Kyle did this, Kyle did that. And then everyone realized, wait a minute, Rome's a liar. Rome's never told the truth this game like once. And Kyle goes from dead man walking potentially to Survivor Jesus, winning the immunity challenge and being completely invulnerable and be like, yeah, I'm sniping Rome. So I mean, just clinically in one episode, can't get a lot better than that. But winner chances, placement chances, I'm still a little on. Like winner chances, obviously he's got a slash, but placement chances, he's definitely one of the stronger ones at immunity challenges, so he could do decent at that. But as he said, Todd, I mean, a social game's a thing, if he's already getting outed by Rome, who's to say who's next to out him, right?
He's what I call the classic eighth. Like usually there's like a strong competitor that is like eighth place. And it's like the right time to take him out. We did it to Frosty. It's just like, this is what you got to do, because if you let them go just a little bit further, then you're risking getting those last few wins. And then they're in the finals, and then they've got the story on top of it to win,
Absolutely.
Yeah. But do you think if Kyle makes it to the final tribal council, do you think he can win? Because I think if he does, his win is going to be very focused on his social game. Because we've heard from a lot of people that he's a good guy, but I feel like him opening up to Rome, because Kyle was in the wrong. He did tell Rome a lot of information.
Yes.
And he did throw a lot of people under the bus. It's just Rome is such a negative presence that no one believed him, and he was able to flip it.
I like to counter. Sorry, go ahead, Todd.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I don't think he can win. I mean, it all depended on like who he would be up against, obviously. Yeah. But I don't know. Like, I feel like he would have one of those like heartwarming stories at the very end that people would fall for. But this also seems like the kind of cast that isn't going to vote based purely on emotion.
Yeah.
Very true.
Which I prefer that. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'd like to add, I think if Kyle were to win in the end, I think it'd be based off perception. Like Kyle, I'm going to bring up Kyler's comment here because I think it's perfect. Reminds me of a hippie ranch hand. You can't tell if he's about to serve or wrangle cattle. I mean, Kyle is, as a perception, the good old country boy.
Yes.
Like a little bit like JT from his first season, Survivor Token Cheats, and that perception is so strong. We saw Rome's perception of conniving, sneaky, dangerous, chaotic. The first couple minutes he was on Lavo. Kyle, first couple minutes he was on Tuku, right? That's the track. He was nice. He was pleasant. He was loyal. That perception goes a long way. And if Kyle were to win, I think we would see him use that. I think we'd see a little bit of strategy with him saying, I want to use my perception. I want to use the fact I'm playing for my family. Use that in the confessional. Show that. But we haven't seen that. And so that's why Kyle's still. Saul, on the other hand, finally gets his due diligence. The Dom slays the Chris Noble. We made a comparison earlier this season saying it was a Dom-Chris Noble rivalry. And, credit to Saul. The Dom slayed the Chris. The question is now, where does Saul go? Because Saul's whole story this season basically has been about his conflict with Rome. Half the challenges being like, let me butt in here. Please, Rome, let me take over. Let me do this. And I'm like, nah, you're not doing that. No, back away. And that was his whole story. And so now that that's gone, what happens? Does he go on this long journey in the game where now he's got a little bit of agency since he's got this gnat finally off of his back? Does he play a little bit stronger? Does he challenge or two? What does he do now? So that's why I have him at 10, and Will and Todd have him at 10 as well. In terms of placement wise, the sky's the limit.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So Saul, I thought the most interesting thing about his story was when he did the confessional, where he was talking about how he really had no idea about all of the different things going on in life, and how he, in his normal life, he like is well aware of his surroundings and whatnot, but how in the game he was completely shocked by what Rome had told him. And so I feel like that was it could either lead to major growth going forward, where he does start to learn and take control of things. Like, he's the one who spoiled Rome's game last night, but he did it in such a way that I don't even realize he had done it. All he said was, "Oh, you got to be careful with that one."
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, was that like a super strong power move, or were you just having conversation and didn't realize that you put the nail in his coffin? Like, it's really interesting to see how it's playing,
Yeah, and I mean, quickly butt in here, that can go a really long way. I mean, we were talking last episode about the merge. There's so many people up to be voted for. No one wants to go home. And so Saul saying one simple thing as, hey, you better watch out for that guy, could completely turn the tribe on its head. And everyone wants to get rid of him. No one wants to go home first at the merge. No one wants to do that. Will, what do you think?
Well, not just that too. I do think it was intentional, and I do think there was a bit more, not necessarily just saying like, oh, we got to watch out for him. But when Kyle gathered everyone around the water well and saying, I hate that Rome guy, Saul said, this is what Rome does. He causes chaos, he plants seeds. And that, I think, was the nail in the coffin. And that was Saul's move, because that ruined all the scrambling and all the paranoia that Rome was building up. And once they band together like that, that's how you really take over Rome's game, because Rome plays off of paranoia. And I think that's how he thrived off of Lavo. But because the numbers were so big, Saul was able to just immediately squash that. It's just, the thing is, I don't know too much about Saul, because Saul so far is just too reliant off of Rome. Everything he's really done and said has been contingent on Rome, except for not knowing anything. I do think there is a small chance he can make it far. It's not unheard of for people who go far to not really be shown a lot early game. I think of Liz from last season, right? She had like no screen time, only about being a millionaire or being rich or whatever, and having a business in the early game. And then later on, she became a much bigger character.
Yes.
So who knows with Saul? He can make it far. I'm rooting for him.
He could. Again, truly, the sky's the limit. All right, we're going to go to our last slash of the episode with Genevieve. Yes, I'm sure maybe, Todd, you were shocked that we've slashed Genevieve because she has had a great past couple episodes in terms of strategy, like Kim Spradlin coded, absolutely. But she's still the top of the slashes. We still think she's going to do the best out of the people that don't have a chance anymore. Yeah, I mean, this episode, she kind of got exactly what she felt like she wanted. She didn't have to get muddy, didn't have to get dirty, found an advantage. Like it's a really strong turnaround for Genevieve. But what do you both think now? Because Genevieve gets rid of Rome, especially crediting the first episode where Genevieve's only confessional is saying, oh yeah, I want to work with Rome, he's a great guy. What happens now? Because now, I don't know, like, this is an enigmatic episode in terms of where to put people, where people could go. What do we think happens to Genevieve now? Because I personally don't know. I don't really know. What do you guys think?
Oh my gosh. I love her, first of all. So I love Genevieve. I think she's awesome. I don't know if I have comparisons to past players, yes, with her, but I also feel like she's the kind of player that I've never really seen before. And that's kind of refreshing, because she is so calm and cool and collected. And she hears one tiny bit of information and then she makes things happen. And that to me, and she does it without panic or without stress. Like even when she was going to get the advantage in the water, she's like, it's going to eat at me if I don't look. Oh, there could be nothing. And she just, oh, look, I found it. It's like, how does she do this without like high levels of anxiety? I don't understand. And I wish that I had that ability. But I don't know, because she's making these power moves and it's pretty incredible to watch. But like, I don't know if she's going to have the social backing to get her to the end.
Yeah, that's her.
And that's my only fear about her not getting to the end, is that she doesn't have the tight alliance anymore.
True.
I think it's less that. I think Genevieve's big problem is going to be her threat management. I think this is going to be a wild shot in the dark, Mr. Todd Herzog. Maybe the first theory.
Boy, do we get to play graphic?
Play the graphic, play the clip.
All right, Todd.
Yes.
It's a crackpot theory, everyone.
I think what will happen this season is I think Genevieve is going to be a huge threat. And I think voting out Genevieve is going to be a smaller player's big move that gets them the win of the season. I think we're headed towards a season where we're going to get a maybe less like strategically apt player, a player, or like there's a few people I think still have a good shot who I still have really high up that a lot of people have really discounted. And I think Genevieve is that missing piece, because I think right now she's been in control of the entire game. And I think her lack of any screen time or confessionals, except for just liking Rome and being too Rome oriented, I think will mean that she doesn't make it to the very end. I think she's going to be too strategic, too gamey. You know, she's going to back up her allies, and I think people will respect that. As you said, this is going to be a very strategic cast, a cast who votes based off of game merits, and because of that, I think she's going to make it to like final 5, final 6, and I think she gets voted out. And I think this player could be like a Marianne-esque figure. They vote out Omer.
I was about to say, you are completely alluding to Marianne and Omer.
And there's a few players I'll get to later. I don't see how they really connect to Genevieve, but that's what I think is going to happen. Todd, what do you think about that?
I think that's actually not a terrible idea. Almost like Eliza, you know, she does kind of, of Eliza, where she's playing a strong game and it goes unnoticed, but then there's somebody who does see it, and then it comes and backfires. So I don't disagree. With that.
Both really great comparisons with the Marion and Omer, and then the Eliza. I'm assuming Christie from Vanuatu is what you're alluding to.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Let's go on to the contenders now. Oh, I was really feeling the slash this episode. Like I was ready to like karate chop the slash for Sierra this episode, but I didn't because I wanted to be nice. You know, I didn't want to be too mean. But Sierra did not have a good episode in the slightest. She did not even get a confessional explaining why she got rid of Annika, which is the most telltale sign in the galaxy that Sierra is not winning. But so I didn't give her a slash. But bad episode, not good at all. Do you guys have a different opinion, maybe? Would you like to counter me, or do you agree?
I agree. I don't think that she's getting... I feel like she got herself in a really terrible situation where she had 2 really strong alliances, and then she had to choose between the 2. And by doing so, she really betrayed, one person. And now that one person is a free agent, and all they have to do is align with someone else to take her out.
Right.
Yeah. I think we don't hear from her perspective enough. And there's a lot of promise early in like episode 4, where I think in episode 5, where I think she could even outlast Sam. But I just think right now she's just back to being a little passive, just trusting Sam. That's not to say she's not doing anything, because obviously they're there for however many days, 5 days now from New Era. It's just because we're not seeing what she's doing, I have a really hard time justifying putting her above anyone else. And I really wanted to give her a slash because this was the worst episode she could have had, despite what happened and who went home. It's just, when you vote out your ally, we need to hear why you do that.
Yes.
And we did not hear it from Sierra.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
No, I mean, yeah, Will and I mostly have the same opinion, and he was texting me before the episode, before the podcast too, and he was like, "Why didn't you give Sierra a slash? I wanted to give her a slash," and I was like, "I'm being nice. I didn't want to."
Yeah.
Next episode, if it, the trend follows or she goes home. Speaking of crackpot theory from Jay, we'll play the graphic after we're done with the comment. Andy is going to take out Sierra because she keeps mentioning that she doesn't know to trust Andy and is similar to Q targeting Kenzie, but never able to get her out. Could that be next episode? Maybe. Well, we got to play the graphic. You think? Doesn't work.
I think this is going to happen, and I think Andy is a secret genius.
Yeah.
Okay, fair.
He's crazy, but listen. So not this episode, but last week, where he sat down and he was doing his confessional, and he was so different than he is when other people. And he was like, "This is what I did. I told da 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 da," and then they came together. It happened exactly like I wanted. They came to me with the name of Sam. He was describing it all perfectly, but then they show him talking to these people, and he's like, "I'm a free number. I'm a free number," and he looks like a crazy person. And
Yeah.
I'm like, you are either putting on the greatest performance ever, or you have two personalities that I don't understand. It's very bizarre, but it's also awesome to watch.
Absolutely, and it could be the catalyst.
Yeah,
could be the catalyst.
He's phenomenal. I love him.
I love Andy too. I didn't really realize the similarity between Q and Kenzie. I do think there's a lot more to Andy. I don't know how much of it is intentional. I don't know how much of his episode 1 freak out and blunder was him trying to, again, John Rivera, wanting to be an a-hole for the first half of the season, come back around in the second half.
It doesn't seem intentional. That's the thing, is it seems
True.
all legit. So if it is intentional, we are all being fooled.
Yeah, he could be the greatest player of all time. He
Yes.
could.
Oh, all right. That's a little too much. All right, here we go. So Sam is next on both of our lists, an average of 7. This episode was all right. Talking after the tribal is good. That's what you need. But also randomly dropped as a threat. This episode, he was his name was said hey, Sam could be threatening later in the game a couple times, and he caught a vote from Rome. So obviously, if anybody this season is going to walk into a tribal council and be like, I want to get rid of a big threat, the first person they're going to look at is Sam.
Is Sam.
100%.
No.
And so that doesn't bode well for his winner potential at all, because of also the exposure he's getting. He's getting so much. He's getting so many confessionals, so much screen time. It's problematic. And unless you are Boston Rob from Redemption Island, it's not going to work out for you, probably.
Yeah.
So I think you two are both in agreement with that.
100%. I mean, I really enjoy Sam. I like him. But if you look at who is left in the game, right? And it doesn't necessarily matter so much about challenge performance. It's just physical appearance. I mean, even going back to my season, James was always our biggest threat. He won nothing.
Yeah.
But we all called him the biggest threat. And it was just because of how he looked. And so Sam, compared to all these other people who are much smaller than him, who look less physically capable than him, which is not even the case. Look at Sue. She's a beast, So it's just something that he gets stuck with, whether he likes it or not, unfortunately.
Perceptions, absolutely.
And also him getting called out by people not even on his tribe who don't understand the dynamics on Gata for having an alliance with Sierra, which was true, and something that Rachel could go back to the Merge tribe to say, and same with Andy, if he wants to throw Sam and Sierra under the bus, because Andy now has a lot more allies who don't know, Andy's behavior, know. Like, I think Sam, he is just one of those guys who's always going to be a big target on Survivor, just by walking in, because just look at him. Good looking guy, very fit, tall. I want to vote out Sam, and I'm in Maryland, not Fiji.
100%.
So, that's all I'm saying.
Rome said that's why he voted for Sam. He's able to make instant connections with people on the beach. Yeah, there we go. And I mean, not just talking about the physical appearance, the perceptions, but the social game too. I mean, if Rome's able to actually give a pretty decent perception on the game based on what he sees, that's how you know someone's pretty much clear. All right, we're gonna take a break. Todd, you're on this show. We're gonna play your ad because you're on the show. We'll give you some clout. Here we go.
What's up, guys? I'm Todd Herzog, the winner of Survivor China, and I am here with Survivor Now podcast, the best source for Survivor information, to show off what I do for a living. So I make custom Funko Pops. If you haven't seen or heard, you can check it out on Instagram at Todd's Pop Shop, or you can message me, toddspopshop@gmail.com, to order your own. And if you mention this podcast, you will get $10 off and a free torch. So it's pretty freaking awesome. I'm going to show you a few right now. We've got Troyzan here, Phil from The Amazing Race, JLP, host of Australian Survivor, and look, little Charlie. Anybody you could possibly imagine or want yourself playing an LRG or an ORG, or just with your loved one or family or pets or anything like that, shoot me a message. I'm happy to make it. You also have the chance to win a free custom pop if you sign up for Survivor Now Podcast Fantasy League. So it's pretty awesome. And it's fun. Like, who doesn't want to be a part of that? So yeah, hit me up. Get your custom pops. It's great holiday gifts, great birthday gifts. We got a new season of Survivor right around the corner. I'm excited. I'm sure you're excited. Let's get this going.
Go get some Funko Pops, everybody. Go mention us. Get a free torch. Get $10 off. Go get some Pops. All right. So I have Caroline at 4, and I said Will's going to love this because the second I said Caroline would have a decent episode, Will's going to laugh at me because I've been so high on Caroline this whole season. Yeah, I mean, the mother-daughter duo of Sue and Caroline's really coming along. And now I think we're starting to see a little bit more of Caroline's perspective of that mother-daughter duo, which is exactly what we need at this point. Meaning that duo is obviously going to become important in some capacity in some vote or a couple votes later down the line. But we're hearing more from her. And in my opinion, it's what other people are or aren't getting and what Caroline is. That's why I have her at 4. Will you have her at 5? I mean, you moved her up. So you both have to give an opinion on why she's a little bit higher now.
Yeah, I mean, so I will say there's a huge gap between 3 and 4, 5 and 6, or 6 and 7. And like Caroline, she's in that middle tier, but like when I was doing the ranking, it's like I know who was at the bottom. I knew who was at the top. Caroline is just in a weird spot. I will say, I said this before on the podcast, but Todd, I want your perspective on this.
Okay.
I think Caroline could be a very similar player to Sophie Clark in South Pacific in the sense that she's part of this kind of fractured alliance because obviously Tuku has a lot of cracks, right? There's Kyle and Sue. There's just Sue and Tiana. Tiana's, Gabe. Who knows what Gabe's doing? They have a lot of cracks, but Caroline seems very content and very hellbent on keeping them together, wanting them to be a cohesive unit, and she wants to maintain the status quo because Caroline feels very comfortable in the game. When she went on the journey, she said, I feel comfortable. I don't want to change my game. I don't want to do anything. I like where I'm at. And that reminds me of Sophie Clark because she was very content on staying, where she was at with the I forgot the tribe name with Coach and Albert and the ragtag team.
Apollo. Yeah.
Apollo.
There it is.
So do you see that similarity? Do you think if Caroline wins, that could be her trajectory, or do you think she's going to be a more flashy player?
I mean, until you pointed it out, like now that you've pointed it out, I should say, yes, I do see that comparison. Someone also commented the Erica edit. This is what I thought was, I feel like Caroline is getting the Heather edit while Sue is getting the Erica edit. Because they're doing the same exact thing, but one is doing it louder and one is doing it quieter. But both are still kind of in the background, because I feel like Sue would win over her. So, but this last episode, I feel like they focused a lot on Caroline's facial expressions, and you could see what was going through her head without her saying anything, which was pretty awesome, if you ask me. So I do feel like she is going to step it up. But I don't know. I really don't know. She's a wild card for me. She's one that I've always had a little bit of a question mark for. I remember the first 2 episodes, I was like, she's straight from Children of the Corn. But now she's more exciting. I don't know. It's very, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I like her. I just don't know what to do with her yet.
Yeah, it's a piece you're putting on the back burner, right? And Caroline is somebody who, she gets it is truly Erica insurance. Like we talk about insurance in this show, based on people that won before, and this is certainly Erica insurance. I mean, getting under edited, definitely. Caroline, I mean, kind of a point here. I don't think I'm able to articulate it, but Sue just feels like a 0 finalist to me. I mean, if it were Caroline, Caroline is definitely very articulate. I mean, she's clearly a smart woman. I think she could very easily, logically display her game, kind of like you did, Todd, on Council in China, So,
Todd, we're suck-ups. It's okay. We can admit it.
No, come on. Speaking of insurance, we have the quintessential Gabler insurance in Andy Deere. I think it's Gabler insurance or it's Jake from 45, and there's nothing else for me. There's nothing else. I think he's either going to win in a shocking way or he's going to be a losing finalist. And you can call it crackpot. I don't think it is. I think it's pretty. I think it's pretty, sound. It's got some legs, as I like to say on the show. I mean, this episode, he starts off saying I blindsided Annika. It was awesome. And then he goes and he's like, yeah, you got to bond with people, the merge, yada, yada, yada. And then at Tribal Council, he goes, yeah, it was really, really cool to blindside Annika at Tribal Council. And then he gets 2 votes. And now next episode, and the next time on Survivor, he's, being like, I'm going to lose my mind. I'm going to go after everybody. The game is asunder, And to me, I don't really know what to think. I don't really know what to think right now, because I think he's either going to combust spontaneously or he's going to be like Jake and go and get 3rd place.
I think he's going to go at least to 4. That's what I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you say, Todd, is that a little bit of a crackpot theory?
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, you think it's crackpot?
Yes!
It's so hard because I think at the same time people will start to ask the question, who can I beat? And based off of what they see, they're going to think they can beat Andy. So taking him to the end is not a bad idea. But then Andy's also got this story of I was supposed to be the first person voted out.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
And so I guess that's what makes it a crackpot theory is that.
But you explained it, which is good. You explained the crackpot.
So yeah, there you go.
And do you think too he can use the episode 1 where Rachel kind of not ignores Andy, when Rachel was like, hey, I gotta focus on game, dog, go away. Do you think Andy
Yeah.
could use that at Final Tribal Council? Kind of like how Rome used when Saul yelled at him in the challenge. Oh, and Andy could be like, hey, I was rejected early on. I was rejected from my community early on, which is the callback to the premiere episode Matt Chat where Pope was talking about community. And he could be
Yes.
like, I was rejected from my community. I thrived. I struggled. Because when you're an underdog like that, I think you are able to play a messier game. I think it's a lot easier to play from the bottom. I could be wrong. I've never been on an
Oh,
island
no, I completely agree.
for a day. But I think when you're on the bottom like that, you can be messy and you can play that kind of game because Andy could make it seem like I swung for the fences. Sometimes I've missed. Sometimes I did great. And I think Andy has a great story. And I think he is making Final Tribal Council. I just don't know if he's going to be Jake or Gabler, you know?
But if you look at even last night, he said, I thought it was awesome. And people look shocked. And he right away said, she had my name in her mouth since day one. She wanted me gone this whole time. So the fact that I got to do that instead was awesome.
True.
That to me explains that logic right there. Instead of being like, oh, he's vicious. It's like, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I like it.
Maybe Andy votes out Genevieve. That's not who I was thinking about earlier.
Do you think that's gonna be the
No? I think it's another player. No, I think if Andy wins, it's not going to be voting out Genevieve. I think it's just from the story.
Jay is still on the opinion that it's going to be like David Wright in MVGX. He gets a great growth edit, plays a really great game at the end of it, and then goes home right at the end. Someone else potentially.
I don't know.
There are a lot of theories.
Teeny pairing up and taking Genevieve out together.
I like where this is going.
Let's put a pin on Teeny for a bit because I'm very high on Teeny.
Because we got to go to Gabe next. Gabe is next, and we'll get into Teeny. His POV matters. That is the through line for me this episode, is that he still gets content, he still gets time on the screen, and we're still hearing things from his perspective, saying what he wants to do. He says his whole theme is, I want to be on Mount Rushmore of the new era, right? I want to be that. And we're still hearing from him. So I don't have a reason to move him down because the top two contenders are very obvious for Will and I, Sue and Teeny, right? They're very clear cut. They have the new era hallmarks, all of that good stuff. Gabe is still getting stuff. But Will, you moved them down even farther. Yes. You moved them to 6. I want to hear explanations as to why he could be lower this episode.
Because it feels like a lot of fluff, no filler. It reminds me of Xander, actually, because he talks a lot about how he wants to make a big move, how he wants to, be a legend. But he was very absent from a lot of the strategy talk about voting out Rome. Now, granted, voting out Rome was a slam dunk. So I think that explains why a few players were absent in the game talk. We'll get to a player very soon. But I just feel like he was too close with Sue and Caroline, and now he's getting replaced by Caroline in Sue's trust rankings. And so I feel like when you do that, when saying you want to make a big move and you don't really deliver, I feel like he's going to talk about making a big move. He's going to talk about doing this, that, the other thing. And then I think when the time actually comes, I don't think he can deliver. I don't think he will deliver. And I think it's going to bite him. And that's why I moved him down. I do think he has a lot of hope. I love Gabe because of just the Baltimore connection. So I want to see him win because of that alone. But other than that, I don't know. I can't really justify moving him up after this episode. What do you think, Todd?
No, so watching their pre-interviews and stuff, I actually had Gabe as first boot. Obviously watching him play, my opinion and mind has been changed. But I don't think that he has any shot of winning. I feel like he has a lot of talk. He has a lot of show. And I feel like he also has a path that he's on, but he's not looking left and right.
True.
So
he's tunnel vision.
He's planning on going forward, but you have to be watching out for the branch in the road instead of just going one way because someone's going to come up and cut him off.
Yeah, I'm so ready to move him down. I want to see next episode because he's going to be on this group with his whole original tribe and then with Rachel, and I want to see what he does, and I want to see what he says, because if he has this amazing episode where he completely takes the blind side for Tiana, I'm keeping him at the top. If it's all on Sue and Caroline, I'm moving him down pretty heavily. So it really depended on the next episode.
Yes.
Rachel, she had a great beginning to the episode, talking about, man, I survived. The merge gives me new options. Like, I have so many opportunities. We'll get to that next month.
That's my towel.
And then, about halfway through, Rachel kind of disappears. Yeah, no. With that in mind, it's a weird episode, right? It was the Rome catastrophe episode. Everybody got shafted in a way, but I don't know. So the thing to me is next episode going to be the payoff for that? Because next episode she is alone with the whole original Tuku in her group. Is next episode going to be the payoff of I'm at the merge? It's time to make new connections. It's time to really open my game up. Is that going to be the payoff? And then are we going to go back to under the radar Rachel? Is it going to be the kickstart to her game? I moved her. It says 5, but I had 4 people in a tie last episode. So she's actually at 5 now. But Will, you still have her? Well, you have her at 3. You moved her down. You have her at 3. I'm iffy because I need to see. I kind of wanted to see even just a sentence, a sentence of being yeah, I think Rome going is good for my game. Even just that is all we needed, but we didn't get that, and so I'm still a little. I am Will Weary West.
Will Weary West. Todd, how do you think about Rachel? Because I am very, very high on Rachel. I think I actually kind of want to have her at 1 still. It's just when I watch the season, I have to think for a second, but she's still my winner pick from episode 1.
So I can totally see her winning. I feel like what may happen is, like you said, it's going to be her and the rest of the tribe, and she is going to end up being Gabe's replacement. So she is going to end up being Sue and Caroline. So it's going to be a matter of who do I join? Throughout the episode, I need to find my new place because she was, blindsided by Sierra. So I feel like she's going to find them because she's forced to at Tribal Council. They're going to get rid of Tiana, and she's got her new alliance. Well, the girls, the 3 of them, they're smaller and they want to, get together and be like, let's go. That's what I can see happening. And I can see the 3 of them going to the end.
Especially with Rachel already having that pre-establishing connection with the social hour, right? Last episode with Sue and Caroline going on the social hour. I mean, there's an in right there potentially. And if, they're sick of Tiana, Rachel could easily replace that. And then, there's a path where Gabe is kind of ousted from that and isn't really a focal point anymore.
Slowly.
So
happening super fast. I see her being with them. So it's the 4 of them. And then her slowly taking over Gabe's position.
Yeah. And I think she's the one who takes out Genevieve. And I think that's going to be her winning move. I think she's going to be a very social winner, maybe. I think, or maybe she loses because Andy didn't vote for her. I don't know what's going to happen with the payoff between Andy and Rachel. I don't know if the payoff was just Annika going. But I really have Rachel high because I think this episode had a great start for Rachel, and I think it's just to limp into next episode when the game isn't being stifled by Rome, because the first half of the episode was very dynamic in terms of strategy, and then the second Rome opened his mouth and started playing chaotically, everything just kind of became about him again.
Yes.
And so I don't blame Rachel for not having a lot of screen time. And I thought the editors did a great job because last few episodes, people are like, hey, this, like, everyone thought this episode was going to make or break Rachel. And people still have the same opinion about the next episode making or breaking Rachel, which is a hard balance to have. Because with, like, Sierra, I thought this episode broke Sierra, you know? And I thought episode 4, you know, made Teeny, right? Rachel was the in-between. So, you know.
I think it's time for a good make or break. I think it's time for a good make or break for Rachel. I think that next episode, you know, we need to see a catalyst. We need to see something that propels her to get something going in the game. Because again, she still has had a confessional at least every episode this season. You know, other people, Kyle can't say that, Tiana can't say that, a couple of people can't say that. Rachel has had a confessional every episode this season. So there's clearly some importance to her and what's going on. Maybe it's just next episode, or maybe it's the Kickstarter. But Teeny, she gets the amulet played on her. Props to her for doing that. And very tipsy at the reward. I didn't think it was the greatest episode in the world, you know, a little under the radar in my opinion, but we didn't really need to have a big episode for Teeny this episode. I think it was just like a little comment about wanting to get rid of Rome. And that's really, that's really all we needed. I think Teeny is in a fine spot. I think that next episode is going to be incredibly interesting because we are going to see Teeny with Jen and Saul, and then with Sam, Sierra, and Andy. And so that's a really interesting 6 that we haven't talked. We've been talking mostly about the 5 and 1. We haven't even talked about the 3-3 that's going to be going on and what can happen with that. Will Teeny flip on Genevieve and Saul? Will Andy flip and work with Teeny? What's going to happen next? But right now, I'm completely complacent. I'm fine with putting Teeny at 2. I see no problems yet, and I think this was fine. This is like Nick Wilson in David versus Goliath. He really didn't get anything in his merge episode. Didn't really get a lot to talk about. And then the next episode, he made one of the greatest Survivor plays ever, basically.
Yep.
But what do you guys think?
And I don't know. Like, I really like Teeny, but I don't feel like I feel like a lot of people are building Teeny up, but I don't see what everybody else is seeing because I see wishy-washy. And I see like no straight path forward. So I need an episode where I see the move played and happening, and I need it to follow through without remorse. Like everything, I like what she does, but it doesn't come through as like this was my move or this was my plan. It's a lot of let me follow you and then apologize. And that's frustrating for me because I need to see a little bit more, but I feel like Teeny also has not had the grounds to be able to play one single episode without, having lost a vote, or this is what's happening with the idols because we have no choice but to. And so I want to see what's going to happen next.
Great opinion.
I disagree because I think her wishy-washiness from episode 3 or episode 4, when she went to Saul apologizing because she didn't want to vote for Aisha, I think that was less her being wishy-washy. I think that was her being humanized because I feel like right now she is a little game body, and I think her apologizing is just her being human. But we haven't really seen a whole lot of that because it's like there's that, and then there's her losing Keyshawn, her number 1, an ally she's stuck close to no matter what. I think she's just loyal and a little emotional, and I don't think that will be the end of Teeny. Because I think this will work out for. I think honestly, I just think the stars will align for Teeny this season. I think she'll just get a lucky break or something. Because the thing is with Teeny, and this is something admittedly I read on the internet, and it's something I agree with, is that when we talk about Teeny and Sue, like Sue gets a lot of screen time, and we hear from her perspective constantly, but I feel like we need to. And that reminds me of Charlie. We constantly had to hear from Charlie because Charlie, he was in the driver's seat a lot of the game of 46, and he was in the power position with Maria. we hear from Teeny a lot for no reason. Kind of like what we heard from Kenzie a lot for no reason. And so when I draw the parallels between them, it's not because I think Teeny is a very similar player to Kenzie. I mean, she could be, I don't know. I don't really see her being like a social butterfly. I see her more being a strategic player. But I just think, part of me just thinks things will work out for Teeny, and this will be the season where it happens. And
I can see this totally. Sorry to cut you off, because
No,
I agree with you on, I do see things working out. I guess what I was saying is I'm waiting for it, because so far it just hasn't fallen into place yet. It just, not a single one of the tribal councils has been just like, let's go in with a plan. It's been so against her, like when it was Kishan, or the idol last night and stuff like that. So it's not working right yet. And the wishy-washy part is humanizing, yes, but in Survivor, you can only be sorry for so long.
True.
I love the dialogue. I love the conflict. This is awesome.
I feel like she will own her game more as time goes on, though.
Like, I want to see, like, please.
And I think we will.
I
think I'm just willing to put my eggs in a basket.
Okay.
Yeah. In a scenario where Teeny does win, a really nice episode for her, it could be next episode, could be an episode or two down the line, maybe, I think, Todd, you put it right at the nail on the head there. A really nice talking about the process, going through a move, no remorse, like doing that kind of follow through with that action. I think we need to see that true strategic backbone, because we've had a lot of strategy in Teeny's confessionals. Don't get me wrong. It's just been kind of introspective. We need to see it play out.
My crackpot theory with Teeny as to what could do this for her. I can see her teaming up with Andy, right? Andy's an outcast. She pretty much doesn't have anybody. She's not super close with Genevieve, and she's not super close with Saul. She's with them by default. So I can see her aligning with Andy and Sam, and maybe being the one that takes out Genevieve.
Could be next episode based on how the Travs are pairing up. All right, last one is Sue. Random bits of focus, good and bad. We talk about forced negativity in the new era, right? For a new era winner to win based on the edit, they have to have some kind of negativity thrown at them, and Sue has had that. And to me, Sue's importance in the game, Sue's highlighted the mother-daughter duo. She's cooking in endurance challenges. I mean, are you kidding me? Going toe-to-toe with Kyle? That was awesome. That was so cool to watch Sue do that. I'm still very high on Sue. I have her at number 1. Next episode, if I were to see something that would detract, make it less so, maybe put her down in contention rankings, it would be more of a highlight on Gabe, Rachel, not as much on Sue. But I still have Sue at number 1. Really fun episode with the idol shenanigans and the challenge. Like, yeah, I thought it was awesome.
Yeah. I love Sue. I think it's awesome to see, like, she, every single time that there's an older mother type figure, they say, I'm stronger than people think. Well, Sue's proving it. Like, she's out there proving it. She could kick my ass. Like, this woman.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome. I don't think her social game is the greatest, but I don't think that it's because she's bad at being social. I think it's because she's very empowered by being the one to prove just how strong of a woman she is. And so if that could be her only downfall, but other than that, I feel like she's got a great story.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Sue's weird because, like, whenever I do my like armchair, not armchair, like on the couch saying, "Oh, I would do this instead." Whenever I watch Survivor, I disagree with a lot of the things and a lot of Sue's rationale. I don't like how reactionary she can be. I don't like how quick she is to want Kyle and Tiana gone. I think her breaking the pot and not being able to hide the paint was very sloppy. And there's a lot of things Sue does I disagree with, but the way it's shown to us is always good and positive. And that's the difference. That's the reason why I moved Sue up, is because as much as I disagree with what Sue does, how it's shown to us is very good. So like when she doesn't hide the pot, right? When everyone finds her paint, Tiana doesn't seem to really put two and two together. Like, especially at the start, she just says, I don't know what's going on with Sue. This is in the captain's log. In this episode, we hear more about it, but Caroline uses this to trust Sue even more. And I feel like in her not trusting Kyle and Tiana, I think she can get away with it because of where Kyle and Tiana are in the tribe dynamics. We're always hearing from Sue's perspective, and everything on Tuku ultimately goes back to Sue. And as much as I didn't really buy into her being a winner, I can kind of see it, or I can see her being the final 5 boot.
Yeah, no, potentially. Jay with the comment here. Sue's idle shenanigans, a bit of a knock against her, especially the idol gets played well. Wasn't necessary for them to show the broken pot stuff. But yeah, Will, you explained it quite well. I mean, negatives turning into positives, right? Like Sue had this idol fiasco. Tiana figured it out. Caroline stuffed it out. But it turned into a positive because it got Caroline and Sue even closer. And that mother-daughter duo becoming a big component of the game. And so, to me, it's that. I think a really nice episode. Let's say Dave becomes the strategic focal point, or Rachel does next episode. I want a positive episode from Sue. I want to talking about her kids, maybe talking about her, grandkids a little bit, something like that. A nice little personal story. I think would really kind of lock her in for me at the top for a while. Yeah. But I don't know. Maybe she has a nice strategic force episode, and she, becomes the bull, so to speak.
Her tsunami management is not that great, though. Kind of like you said, Will, where she has these personal vendettas against people instantly, and so jury management is terrible. Like, if she's blocking these people from getting close to her, why in the world would they give her a vote at the end?
Yes. But as you said earlier, too, this doesn't seem like a cast that's going to really reward emotional journeys. And so I could see it kind of like the jury of Survivor Game Changers, where they hated Sarah Lucina and Brad Culpepper for Sarah's emotional manipulation and Brad's outbursts towards Ty. But despite Troyzan being the only good guy at Final Tribal Council, he got no votes.
Yeah.
Sue could be that player where, yes, she did close out a lot of players, but do you see someone like Kyle voting based off of strategic merit and rewarding Sue?
Kyle?
Maybe, not Kyle in particular. Yeah, Kyle's not really a wash.
Just generally though. I see.
But generally, do you think a player that she closes off will reward her gameplay?
Yeah, I feel like she has already a bucket list that a list that she can resume. That's what I'm looking for. She has a resume that she can show off if she can word it properly. But if she's sitting next to someone like Caroline, like you said, Caroline is very well spoken compared to Sue. But Sue does have much more on her card.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. It's all going to depend on how Sue dictates it. Dude, Sue dictates it. I mean, if she's up in the end, say Caroline and Andy, Caroline's obviously very eloquent, and Andy's AI research assistant, and the way he pinpointed his strategy last episode, he could do that in front of a jury, right? Oh, yeah. And so Sue's in a bit of trouble there. And so that's a worry potentially. We got to figure out if she can really dive into it well at a Final Tribal Council.
It's Sue Weary. What's her last name? I don't know. I was doing the Will Weary.
Oh, Sue Smee. Sue Smee.
Sue Weary Smee. That could be Sue. We don't know.
There we go. All right. It's time to get into the last section of the show. Wow. So, the charts. Wabang. We got our charts. really weird episode. I mean, no one had a complex personality this episode. It was strange. I mean, Rome, over the top negative, closes out on one of the greatest Edgic strips I've seen, just over basically. But yeah, just weird episode. No real standouts here. I think just, middle of the road, on the radar. Everyone got something, so no one's a ghost. It's a wait and see on the Edgic side for me. The only thing I want to point out is that Sue's Edgic strip, at least for me, is looking a little bit like not as much as exposed, right? But a little bit like Kenzie's in terms of the negativity and the mix and here, there at the beginning, and then a positive kind of trend towards the end. If that were to happen for Sue, be very much similar to Kenzie's. But other than that, pretty nondescript.
I will say I wanted to mark Andy as over the top because I did not like how he gloated about voting out Annika. That's something I forgot to really bring up when we talk about Andy. I don't like how he talked about it in his confessional because it felt like too much for Andy's story. Like when we talk about Andy, in his underdog story, it's like I don't really think he should be laughing about Rachel being on the bottom, because Andy was on the bottom for a long time and was not very lucky, but very lucky that Sam had a lot more sway over Sierra, because Sierra did not even like that plan. It's just Sam was too locked in. But he did cool off for the rest of the episode, and I think people laughing and him joking about it at Tribal Council made it better. But that's the only big thing. I also gave Genevieve a positive tone because of the advantage find. That's about it. That's the only big difference.
Todd, any thoughts? You were on Survivor Sucks. You might have seen an Edgic or two. Do you have any thoughts?
I don't know. I will say this much about the whole editing of the season, because even episode 1, Rome had a winner's quote that they used to give everybody in old school seasons. You know what I mean? So the editing and everything is obviously super different, and I almost feel like we're being tricked, and they're doing something different this season than they have in any of the other new era seasons, because it's so different to me than this is the first time in the past 7 seasons that I genuinely can see several different people going to the end with a very different path and very different gameplay. And normally by now I'm like, oh yeah, it's Kenzie, or oh yeah, you know what I mean? Because of the Edgic and logic. But so I agree. I didn't think about the Andy thing. It is weird for his story, but I agree with that completely because his story hasn't been haha at all. So that was interesting. And then I feel like Genevieve is one of the only ones who's had a pretty consistent edit. Sierra took a super jump. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah. I think a good point to end off of for this episode is it is a truly make your own destiny kind of season right now. Yeah. It is truly what edit are you going to have? What story are you going to tell?
This double was huge.
Absolutely. It is going to be massive, and we can't wait to see it. All right, closing statements. We're going to round out the show here. Join our Patreon. We had a nice little coach interview last week, which was pretty fun. Check out the shop, get some merch, get some Survivor StockWatch merch, definitely, because we're obviously the best show on Survivor Now podcast. Follow us, Instagram, X, Twitter. I call it Twitter. It's X, Follow us there. And don't forget to like and subscribe, listen to all our stuff on Spotify. All right. That is going to do it for us. Todd, the last question I want to ask, I want to leave you off of, because obviously you did play Survivor. It's a two-parter, maybe.
Okay.
Who do you want to most see play again? Ooh. Or would you play again on Survivor 50?
I would say yes. Asked. I would love to play again. I don't expect it or think it will happen, but I think it would be a wild experience because it's been so long. So yeah, I would say yes. Who do I want to see? That's a crazy long list. I would love to see a lot of people. I want to see Eliza again. I love Eliza. I have a weird, I love Eliza. I think she would be so fun to watch again. I want to see, oh my gosh, put me on the spot. Courtney, of course. I would love to see her.
Yes, absolutely.
We do too.
Sorry, I just choked on my own spit.
You're good. You mentioned Eliza and Courtney, and that's what happens.
Hey, I love it. I love the picks because I think a lot of new era people are going to be coming back for Survivor 50.
Yeah,
a lot of people from the
Like
series,
Rob C play again. I'd love to see Jason Siska play again. I'd love to see Amy O from Guatemala play. I'd even like to see John come back. I mean, my list is very, very different and odd, but I think Christian would be great from David versus Goliath.
What about Greg Buis from Borneo?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That would be incredible. Like, could you imagine?
Get like 49 seasons later.
That would be incredible. It would be. But I don't know. It's just like, first of all, are they going to go with? Are they bringing winners, multiple time players? Are they bringing all people like a second chance type style? Is it going to be? I don't want to see people that have played 5 times. I don't care for that anymore.
Yeah.
I love them. Great. They've had a minute. Let us see some of the people who we all loved to watch and did something crazy out there. And let us see them play again. Let us see what they're going to do again. And I also think if they are going to bring winners, they should do a tribe of winners, a tribe of jury members, and a tribe of pre-jury. I think that would be very cool.
That would be wild. And I have a follow-up. We didn't really plan for this, but if you do go on Survivor 50, do you how would your game change? Because it's a very different game, but I feel like your gameplay in Survivor China does kind of align with new era Survivor, because you were in a very tight alliance who kind of ran the merge. And I think that your threat management was very, very good, even too good, because you walked into the Final Tribal Council and you used that to get you the win. And so, will you play not the same exact game, but do you think you'll play very similarly to then Survivor China? Do you think you're going to change it up and be more of a renegade-esque figure?
I would have to play different. I mean, no matter what, I would have a target on my back, and I would know that. So, the main thing, in my opinion, is being able to adapt and connect.
Yeah.
And play with the idea that I could maybe make the end, but probably not win because of how strategic of a threat I was, Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But even then, people still say that your Final Tribal Council is the best in all of Survivor. When you're able to articulate your game, the way you're able to win over the jury, I think you could be a very social player. I mean, I'm not knocking against your social game in Survivor China, but your strategy was the focal point. And so I think Todd Herzog, 35 seasons later, social butterfly Todd Herzog.
So I get along with pretty much everybody. That's just the truth. I will be friends with anybody that I possibly can. I know I'm not the biggest physical threat, and that's huge. So I have to find value in other places. I have to make myself valuable to these people in other places, and that's the hardest part to do because of the age difference, especially. Yes, I can get along with anybody, but I'm going to be 40 in January. I'm going to be 40 years old. Some of these people could be my children, which is crazy.
If it makes you feel better, I'm turning 32 next month.
No, you're not. Come on. Don't be ridiculous. All right.
But I can connect with them. And that's what I would do. But I know this time I couldn't find the smaller people like me and try to do that same thing that I did in China. It would have to be completely different. And I have ideas. I just can't share them into the world.
Obviously not. And Todd Herzog, I'm looking forward to seeing you on Survivor 50. I think that me and you would work together really well. As we know, I'm going to be on Survivor 49 and 50.
I would play with you.
All right. Yeah, it's sick. All right. Lock it in.
I'd be down. I would 100% be down.
Me, you, and Troyzan, dog.
No, my God. That's going to be the greatest alliance in Survivor history. All right, Will, Todd, this has been the Stocks. Thank you all for watching
Thank
this
you.
great episode. Todd, amazing commentary. I mean, we'd love to have you on the show again at some point. You clearly know a lot about the show and winner stuff. We'd love to have you on the show again. But truly, we thank you all for your time watching this very special episode of Survivor Stock Watch. And we will see you next week for what is sure to be Rachel's Come to Jesus